So I have the great pleasure of introducing Marvin Cruz. Marvin's over here. Marvin's parents immigrated to the United States from the Philippines, not at the same time. They came at several times and actually met in the United States, where they got married and had Marvin and his brother. Marvin's dad was a janitor for 30 years, recently retired. His mom trained as an economist in the Philippines, but worked in electronics assembly here in the US. Marvin is here because he nominated Yo Azama, who, quote, doesn't act like a teacher. And he doesn't act like a teacher because he's engaging and down to earth. And he has his students so focused on learning that they forget that they're in class. Marvin learned so much that he is now an electrical engineer at Jet Propulsion Labs. And he is working on some NASA-funded projects, which means that he is designing stuff that ends up on Mars, which I think is really cool. So Marvin, come on up.
Can you guys hear me? A little nervous. It's been a little over a decade since I was a student in Mr. Azama's Japanese class, but I realized that as I got older, the more I appreciated what I learned from him and the experiences that I had in his class. And there were two kind of main things that I really took away from him. And the first thing that I noticed about Mr. Azama was that he was a real innovator with regards to introducing technology into the classroom in such a way that sort of helped enhance the learning experience. So keep in mind that this was around 2002, 2003, when not everybody had a computer in their house. And even something like the internet was something new. So in class, we do a lot of work on computers and digital media in particular. And I remember that in class, we do a lot of video projects where we'd act out skits in groups that would incorporate everything that we've learned in class. We would videotape ourselves, doing these skits. We'd then export the video onto a computer and then do video editing. But this wasn't like basic video editing. This was like hardcore stuff. We were adding effects, transitions, music. We were doing anything that would make it cool. And when you think about it, this was 2002. Even during this time, even at the college level, maybe film students were still doing like editing on VCRs. We were doing nonlinear editing in 2002 high school students. So in this manner, he sort of, let us explore our creativity. Because I noticed that, especially in high school, not a lot of students get to do creative things. They don't get to explore that sort of nature about themselves. And what Mr. Azama did was he incorporated technology in such a way that took learning to the next level. And he saw that potential. He was really forward-thinking. And the second thing about Mr. Azama is that he respects students. And he's really sympathetic toward the progress. A lot of times when you're teaching something to somebody new for the first time, you often forget that it's hard for a beginner starting out. Because from your standpoint, it's so obvious to you, right? It's so obvious to you, but it's new to them. So what Mr. Azama does is he puts himself in the shoes of students. Because, being a student, being a teenager, it's tough. You're 13, 14 years old, you're a high school student, you're going through new experiences, you have family, friends to deal with. And what he does is he sort of getting lost. So what he does is he creates an environment where students don't have to worry about making mistakes. Actually, what happens is he encourages students to make mistakes because that's what actually enables students to learn. And by doing that, he actually removes a burden from our shoulders. And by doing that, students can actually enjoy learning. They actually forget that they're learning. So, I could go on forever about Mr. Azama, but I just wanted to say, thank you for everything that you've done. I know I'm going to butcher this in Japanese, but 今までありがとうございました。Thank you.
Great, I get to say something. Okay. Some money? Okay, I need it. Okay. Okay, I do. Thank you, Marvin. And Tracy. By the way, Marvin Cruz and Tracy Cruz. They are both took my class. They met in my class, and then married in my class. No, they married. It would have been good though. They married last summer, and then they invited me for their wedding. I know. That was wonderful, and thank you for that. And this is amazing. I teach you one thing. My students told me this the other day. She was doing like this. You know what this means?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I wasn't sure what she was doing. She was, what are you doing? Yeah. Not this way, it's mom. Okay. Speaking of mom, I'd like to thank my mom. I started thinking, I know, Brooke, you told me that I should make a list of people to thank. I'm going to make it really quick, okay? So my mom. Let's start with the students, the most important part. Thank you so much, Marvin and Tracy, and all the students in my class. And I teach in Salinas, California, and oftentimes gang violence and that negative things is often highlighted. But I want you to know that North Salinas High School, we have wonderful, wonderful students taking Japanese. The places, some of them may not never go, but they take it. It is my job to bring Japan to the classroom every day, so they get to experience Japanese culture. Otherwise, they will never have a chance. Secondly, my colleagues, world language teachers, awesome. Kind of Lauren and Duarte disappear. Oh, Duarte is over there. Thank you so much for your guidance. And principal, Ms. Oliver, thank you so much. And my parents, finally, they came from Japan. I know. I thought that was a good idea, right? I didn't know that they would stay for 1 week and then 5 days would be good. But anyway, so my mom, I'm going to tell you about something about my mom. So, okay. So when I was 15, my mother, Keiko, came home. By the way, I don't know about you, but I was going through really rebellious child, Maybe some of you are still going through that stage. But I had a red hair mohawk and angry about everything. I was 15, I was angry at chairs, or I don't know. So one day my mom came back and then she said to me, you always wanted to go to America, right? I said, yeah. More like, yeah. And then guess what, you're going? Really? When? Sunday. Well, it's Wednesday, Mom. This is a real story. It's kind of I'm so glad I can tell you the story now in front of her. So anyway, and then they shipped me to Seattle, the Pacific Lutheran University. They told me that they are gonna have a summer music camp. So there I am. So I didn't speak English at all. I kept saying, I'm Japan. So 2 weeks I didn't speak to anybody, but the music became my second language. So first language is Okinawan actually, and I learned Japanese. And the third language happened to be music, and that's how I made connections. But a wonderful experience. So finally I made it home somehow, and then of course they weren't there to pick me up that day. So I had to take a taxi home. And then my mom surprised us. She's like, oh, you made it. And then she quickly said, oh no, I think you're coming back tomorrow. But you know what, the lesson of this is, okay, it's experience another culture is so important to me. Like if I could send my students, take all my students to Japan and experience the same thing, I would love to do that, and I do my best to do so. And lastly, thank you so much for Carlson Family Foundation. I know I don't look like a college student, but I should be. Now I think I am part of this family. Thank you.